I would say the biggest question from central banks is what is the role of tokenization and digitization? How quickly should they think about digitizing their own currency? What does that mean for the role of the dollar? If every currency digitizes and we have, what does that mean for bank payments? What does that mean for the payment companies like MasterCard and Visa? All these are being questioned right now. I think we spend so much time talking about AI. We're not spending enough time talking about how quickly we're going to tokenize every financial asset and the opportunity we're going to have a digital wallet and moving ETFs and other things through a digital wallet. And I think that's going to happen worldwide very rapidly. And I think most countries are ill-prepared for that and underappreciate how technology is changing that, not unlike how technology is changing AI and other things. It will be changing the technology around the plumbing of finance.
Bottom line is everything has changed. And the incumbents are like dinosaurs having to deal with an asteroid coming in at a low angle and changing the climate. I think that they're still like deer caught in the headlights.
Stepping back at its simplest, I like to say, in the early crypto markets, when the asset lives in the ledger reconciliation what matters. When the asset lives in the law, it's the legal reconciliation that matters. So for 10, 15 years, we've been very focused on, how fast and what's the finality of settling this ledger. But again, the problem is in securities, the asset lives in the law. It doesn't live in the ledger. So at best, what we've seen is these ledgers that are, again, multi parties can reconcile them in real time, which is great. But they ultimately are just pointing offline, to a legal system somewhere else. So assets, securities, commodities, the rights and the title to commodities, these all live in the law and these all live offline. So it's very hard to reconcile that natively into the ledger. So that was the problem that we've been working to solve, is not just reconciling the ledger, but multi-party reconciliation of legal claims that also can give that, again, that machine readability, that machine verification that can speed up commerce and speed up trust in the system.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Steel News. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and I just returned from a really exciting weekend. I was up in Washington, D.C., where I screened with some good friends, Sarah Conifani, Bobby Lawrence, and others, a movie called Birthright, Born Free, Live Free. It's playing in theaters around the country, and it is an incredible movie. It's a really incredible capture of our country's history, the founding fathers, who we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to be, and pretty much just how far we've fallen from that grace. But it was very well received. It has been very well received coast to coast. We're going to show you the trailer at the end of this show tonight. And also on Sunday, I walked with General Flynn and his America's Future team down Constitution Avenue for the National Veterans Day Parade. What an honor indeed it was. Tonight, we've got a really great show. This is a little bit different. I used to do a segment on my old show, Steel Truth, called Steel Money, and that was every single night. So tonight we're going to be into the weeds on money, but this is really exciting because as you know, the global reset is underway right now. And there's just so much conjecture about what's really happening, who these people are, what's BlackRock, who are all these global conspirators? Is it going to be the end of the dollar? Are we sort of diving off a cliff? And, I'm here to tell you that there's some very exciting developments that have been going, and they've been actually underway for the last 10 or 15 years. It's very, very exciting. And you got a little preview of it by a gentleman who was on my open by the name of Josh Crum. So we're going to be diving into what I would consider one of the most transformative developments in global finance. And I want to pull this up here because I want you to see just exactly who I'm talking about right here, this company. And you've seen me tweet about them. I've dropped some hints over the last couple of years on my X feed. So I think it's apropos that it's about time that we kind of dive into what I call really one of the more transformative developments in global finance and commodities. Because really, if you look at everything you own and have and aspire to actually get physical things, commodities are what run the world. And so what better opportunity than right now to talk about a company that I find incredibly fascinating? It's the rise of Abaxx Technologies. They're a Singapore-based exchange and clearinghouse that's basically redefining what honest, transparent markets really look like in today's digital age. And there's so much fear when it comes to digitizing and tokenizing. We're going to break that down for you tonight. And for decades, our global trading systems have depended on a very opaque bunch of intermediaries. These are layers of brokers, they're custodians and clearing agents that slow settlements and obscure true price discovery. And they consolidate the control of all of this into like the hands of the few people. We're always talking about those puppeteers that are pulling the strings out there. But Abaxx is demonstrating something very revolutionary, that when technology is rooted in law, identity, and physical delivery, it can actually restore integrity to markets and empower a new era of global trade. This company was founded by veterans from Goldman Sachs, NYMEX, CME, and SGX, and Abaxx has launched the world's first physically deliverable futures contracts in liquid natural gas. Now, some of you are going, what the hell does that mean? Don't worry. We're going to break it down. And these futures contracts are also not only besides LNG, they're in carbon, energy, transition metals. We're hearing a lot about, the trade war with China and getting access to the rare earths and all this stuff. But there's never really been transparency. So we're going to be bringing transparency and truth back to that commodities infrastructure that, is critical in powering our civilization. My guest tonight is Joseph Metcalf. He's the chief investment officer over at Gordon Metcalf, a family office investing in disruptive technologies across energy and finance. He has over 17 years of entrepreneurship, and Joseph began building companies in college while studying biochemistry and business at the University of Eastern New Mexico, where he also competed in track and field. Since 2021, he's managed 2 technology-focused funds for the Metcalf family, delivering an extraordinary 80% compounded annual return. How many of you saw those kind of returns over the past 4 years? Well, that's what he did. And this is all in their flagship fund. And in 2019, he decided to make a very bold pivot from real estate into Bitcoin and blockchain infrastructure, focusing now on what he calls the plumbing of modern finance, the systems that move value, collateral, and trust through the global economy. But beyond markets and money, Joseph's life is grounded in faith and family and service. He often says that true fulfillment flows from a relationship with Christ and a desire to serve others, a principle that underlies both his investment philosophy and his views of technological transformation. So tonight with Joseph, we're going to learn together what he sees in Abaxx that others might be missing. When he discovered it, why he invested early into Abaxx. We're going to unpack what drew him to this company and why he's so bullish, and why Abaxx's digital title technology may soon rival that of Larry Fink's vision for tokenized real-world assets, but with far deeper integrity and purpose. So without further ado, let's bring in the guest of the hour here, Joseph Metcalf. It is a pleasure to have you here. Thanks so much for joining me and agreeing to do this conversation, because I think my audience is going to find this fascinating.
And thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so I want to get my audience a little bit more up to speed besides the introduction I gave to you, because your background, you've really done quite well. Obviously, the returns that I was, quoting directly from your bio is pretty incredible. But, who is Joseph Metcalf besides just having another baby? Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, 3 weeks old.
Short
So
on
I'm sure.
sleep, probably
you-
3 hours average last week. So
Hey, I remember it well. I'm very well versed in that, and it's all good. And you know what? Still here, so you're going to be just fine. I'm sure of it.
that's a great question. I'm nobody special. I remember my first job when I was 8 or 10 years old. I was putting in fence posts for a neighbor just north of town here, and making $4 an hour. And dad's a physician, grandfather's a physician, uncle's a physician. I thought I was going to be a physician. So halfway through college, I'm studying biochem. I'm doing all this stuff. And I find that I'm sneaking over to the business school going, oh man, I like business law and accounting more than I do my other classes. And realize, you know what, if I'm not dreaming about becoming a physician, I should become a physician. So didn't know what I wanted to do after college. I was finishing up a business minor when I came home. Long story short, my twin brother roped me into painting for him. With him for another painter. And that's how he paid his way through school. I paid my way through school through athletics. And I've been building businesses ever since, and started my first company when I was 19 years old. Yes, I'm still in my 30s. So I started early, and I've had some fabulous failures. I remember my first business was a firework retail business. Get this. I borrowed some money from my dad, put all the product in a tent, and then the second day in business, basically a tornado came through and wiped it all out. So I'm standing there, I'm 19 years old, and I owe my dad all this money, and I've got no insurance on this
Oh
stuff.
no.
It took me 6 years to get back. Oh, it was a disaster. But, that's just life. And I think,
Yeah.
when someone quotes these fabulous stats, oftentimes they're not seeing the decades of failure after failure after failure of just getting up and just not giving up. So we've probably started, let's see, we run about 10 holding companies right now, but I would say half of those are flaming failures. A couple of them are okay, and a couple of them are spectacular. And that's just life, and that's business.
Right. I mean, listen, you don't learn without failure. That is part of it. It's just the badge of honor that you wear. It's another notch in the belt of just getting through life. And listen, if you went through life perfectly, how boring would that be? You would never appreciate the success you have. And so I always say, it's sort of like when you're in sales, you got to go through 9 no's, and the 10th person will be a yes, but you've got to get through
Right.
those no's before you get to the yes. It's just the way it is.
Right.
So
So let's back up a little bit.
sure.
I think this is really key. So I want to spend a couple minutes on this. In 2020, when the COVID shutdowns, and we would have never seen this. So I've always been fascinated with markets. So our family's not from extreme wealth or anything like that. I just spend a couple thousand hours a year researching and running funds now, and I'm almost full-time doing that. And so what was going on is we thought that when the government opened up everything, which it was a complete disaster, obviously. So I remember I'm running around a lake summer 2020 and realized, oh my gosh, we're going to see massive inflation when things start opening up. And I go, at the time we're running a painting service business with about 15 people. And I go, you know what, we're at the top of the end of the market. I can't afford to increase our prices 15% a year. So I'm thinking, okay, someday in the future, maybe 5 years, and that day is today, we cannot raise our prices any longer, and we're not going to be profitable. So I start looking around going, okay, we're a service-based business. We've got a little bit of money. What do we invest in? And so what I realized on that journey is, and this is what people are feeling at Walmart. And I'll be honest, you can't look at me and say, I don't have this problem too, because the way we structured our family funds is, our funds are legacy assets, and I get salary just like everybody else. So 8% debasement per year. What does that mean? It just means the government is printing 8% more dollars. Your M2, which is the total dollars in circulation minus some reserves, is increasing 8% every year. Well, if you don't have any physical assets like commodities, a home, a commercial property, now something like Bitcoin, you're losing 8% per year.
That's right.
What concerns me is 50% of the people in this country, they don't have assets. So it's getting harder and harder. Like yesterday, I looked at a Walmart bills from first week of this month, and I about had a heart attack. And I go over to my wife, and is like, what are we buying from Walmart? That's what you're seeing Why did we
Yeah.
not notice that in the last 30, 40 years? Well, I suspect women are coming into the workforce. It's more common to have 2 household incomes. So, $60,000 maybe a long time ago, really,
It
really
went a
good.
long way. Today
Went
it
a long
doesn't.
ways. Now it takes 220 or 80 or 90. And some people are saying, hey, we're, 2 of us are working, we can barely make 70,000, right? So why is that important? That's important because we were kind of in a pinch, or I thought we were going to be in a pinch and I wanted to avoid it. So we go, okay, we're obviously can't raise our prices that fast. What can we invest in that's extreme, that's disruptive, and that'll keep our asset base ahead? Okay. And for us, that ended up being Bitcoin. It was an incredible investment, and we still invest there, but it cycles in and out, so we trim and add at points. But if we didn't do that investment, we'd probably be out of business right now.
Right.
Because even this past spring, we were down hundreds of thousands of dollars, losing money like crazy, just because people weren't spending money on paint jobs. So that's kind of the onus. That's kind of where we pivoted. We were, really, really focused on real estate. And then in 2020, realized, oh my gosh, we're focusing on the wrong thing. So if you look back, only 3 things are outperforming your monetary debasement, in my opinion. It's really, really key real estate, like on a South Beach. Okay, that's hard to afford.
Right.
It was Bitcoin, and then it was really disruptive tech, NASDAQ type stocks.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we live, and that's where we focus on now.
Well, thank you. You know what? You brought it home and you made it so digestible for the average American, which, doesn't, like you said, doesn't have assets that they can, set aside, watch it grow to counteract the debasement of the dollar. Like you said, 8% per year. I mean, what is the dollar down to 3 cents from when it originally was, first started the
Yeah.
circulation? We have 3 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, and most people don't realize that
That's right.
97% debasement. Now, I'll say something really controversial right now. It's actually not a left or a right thing. They
No.
both spend massive amounts of money. And if you look at history, we can't actually do anything about it. And that's the secret. The only thing we can do is protect our money. If you look at, the Dutch was the reserve currency of the world, and then the British had it, and the British pound, and then the Americans. Well, basically, when you sign up to be the reserve currency of the world needs your dollars. We have to provide those dollars to them. We don't have a choice. We have to print, in their mind. And that's what we're seeing. So it's actually very predictable. But you know what? I get it. If you're not like a finance nerd, we all have our lives. There's just no way you can memorize everything and know that.
Of course not. And, for those that follow the news, now that the Saudis are taking payment for oil and other things than dollars, it's now, left the market flooded with dollars because they're now selling it in the yuan and other currency out there. So we are the chickens have come home to roost, as they say. But and here's where we are. So I want to hone this in because this is I know I've been following this company Abaxx for 5 years now. And I know that Josh Crumb has been working on this for a lot longer than that, the CEO of this company. But people in my audience have been hearing about the global reset, the great reset, and all these names, and there's all sorts of memes out there that'll sort of poke fun at a lot of the figures in the quote great reset narrative. But at the underpinnings of it all, as you just said, the dollar is debased. Our financial system is, sort of on its last legs, and there is a shift that's coming, and it's happening worldwide. The BRICS nations are using gold to pay off their debts to one another. In other words, when there's trade imbalances, they're settling their trade imbalances in gold. So all the BRICS countries have come together. And what I find interesting about that is, for the most part, the BRICS countries aren't at war with one another because they've now found a stable monetary system to trade with, being gold being sort of the underpinning of it. And they're using each other's currencies. And where they're short, they pile gold in to make it equal. So the thing of the matter is, commodities is what goes around the world. We have food, you have oil, you have metals, you have things to make stuff with. And if you're trading commodities, the old system wasn't very efficient in terms of tracking the commodities, getting paid when you bought and sold commodities. And of course, we know the SWIFT banking system, which is going away, was very slow. In other words, when you made a wire from my bank to your bank, it sat somewhere and somebody else's bank was making money on it for a few days before you got paid. So it was really hard to actually keep up with the speed of business based on the system that we've been running on for so long. So enter this company called Abaxx. First, I want to find out from you before we really break it down is when did you first learn about Abaxx and what initially caught your attention as an investor?
It was November of 2020, and I was listening to, like many others, the Macro Voices podcast with Eric Townsend. It's kind of an institutional podcast that goes over investing. And I had never heard him stick out his neck before and say, hey, I did this investment in this business. It's going to go public to a reverse merger, blah, blah, blah. And it just instantly clicked with me because part of my job is to intake thousands of hours of research and look at different ideas. It just clicked. It just made sense. It was the business that I've been looking for years that I didn't know existed.
Okay, I like it. So then let's talk a little bit about Abaxx and how it positions itself, because this is not, you talked about crypto, you talked about Bitcoin, basically saved your bacon, right? It was something that you were able to, get a great return on investment as of millions of people that have been able to invest in Bitcoin. But Abaxx has a vision. It has positioned itself not as a crypto exchange, but as a regulated commodity exchange and clearinghouse. I want you to break that down because this is pretty significant in the fact that this company is recognized by Singapore's monetary authority. So let's first break down what is a regulated commodity exchange and what is a clearinghouse for those people that are not familiar with those terms.
Great question. So you can own an exchange and not have a clearinghouse. We have both. Okay, so what are they? So a futures commodity exchange is basically like, I'm in farm country in Nebraska. So if I'm a farmer and I've got 10,000 acres of corn, I'm not going to harvest that 10,000 acres of corn and just sell it on the day that I finish harvesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to what's called sell forward. I sell part of my harvest before I even grow it to somebody at a fixed price. And they tell me, hey, once you harvest in November, you need to deliver a quarter of your corn to me at a fixed price, blah, blah, blah. That's called selling part of your physical produce, product, whatever it is. In this case, it's, commodities with LNG, natural gas, all that stuff ahead of time. So basically we're they're a risk management company. So these major global players, what they'll do is a global player will say, hey, I'm producing all of this natural gas. I want to convert it into liquid natural gas, which is called LNG, put it on a ship, move it across the ocean and sell it to somebody else. So what they'll do is it's way too risky to sell that natural gas as it comes out of the pipe at the cost of the day. So what they'll do is they'll use a futures commodity exchange to sell a lot of that product ahead of time. Okay. So it's called hedging your risk. So let's give an easy example. Let's say natural gas is at $5 or the future price is at $5. It cost me $4 to produce it. I'm going to sell a lot of my production ahead of time and say, and I'm going to deliver a quarter of my production to you at $5 because I need to lock in some sort of profit to make sure that I can pay all my bills. Okay. So that's basically a futures exchange is a risk management tool that's highly regulated for the economy, the global economy. There's not very many of them in the world. And when Abaxx was, when they were applying for licensing for their exchange and their clearinghouse, there's companies that wouldn't even talk to them because it's so hard. Just to give you an idea, one hasn't been open, like dual clearinghouse and exchange, for 20 years. That's how hard they are to open.
And who was the last one to do that?
You know what? I don't even know. I've got a list of like 7 of them. There's not very many in the world.
Okay.
Okay. So like, they're so hard to open that like ICE and CME are the really 2 big 100-pound gorillas. They don't even open them. They usually buy them. They let somebody else do all the work because it took us 5 years to do it. It took Abaxx 5 years. So a clearinghouse is the second business. Okay. You don't have to have one to own the exchange, but this exchange will have to have a clearinghouse. A clearinghouse is the most regulated that I know of entity in the world. It basically clears the trades. What does that mean? Well, when you're that LNG producer, let's say you have $1 billion of LNG or natural gas in storage tanks. Well, you're going to go to a bank and say, hey, I want to get a loan based upon my collateral, which is what the natural gas LNG in the storage tanks is. Well, the clearinghouse facilitates a lot of that. So they'll say, okay, Joe, you want to borrow $300 million. You're going to post collateral. I'm going to lock up that LNG or my collateral, which is US dollars generally, or US treasuries. The clearinghouse is going to facilitate it. It's going to be held at, a third party bank, and then, or held by a third party. And basically that clearinghouse is the middleman between the trade. So when I sell LNG to you, Ann, as soon as we close on that deal, the clearinghouse steps in between us and facilitates it to make sure both of us don't lose money. So they're basically your two pieces are your clearinghouse is the risk manager, risk meter of the economy, make sure nothing blows up and make sure everyone is following the rules so that when something bad happens, people don't lose money.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for breaking that down. I think you made it into lay speak so that myself, my audience can all handle this. I know there's some very intelligent people that follow what you do out there on X. And by the way, let's give you a little plug. Your X handle is at, let me pull it up here. It's at, what is it at, Joseph?
Joseph T. Metcalf. Yep.
Yeah, here we go. Let's just give you a little plug out here. Folks, if you want to actually learn more about this from Joseph, I would highly recommend following him on X, and also the folks at Abaxx. We're going to run through those during the course of this interview, but here's Joseph's X account. So by all means, give him a follow, please. That would be really nice if you guys would do that right now. If you're on your phones watching this, just pop over. If you're in X, pop over and give him a follow. Okay, so let's get back to business here, because one of the things I find fascinating is the fact that, this business didn't start here in the US, which is really rather extraordinary. And it seems that the business, in terms of how they're going about organizing and coming around to the United States, has been going from east to west. In other words, they're cycling over in Asia right now, and they've basically been recognized. As you said, they're a regulated commodity exchange and clearinghouse, and they're recognized by Singapore's monetary authority. That's a really big deal. By the way, for anybody that doesn't know this, Singapore is sort of like the new banking and money capital of the world. And they're outside the United States jurisdiction, meaning that if you have assets held in Singapore and the United States government comes for your assets, Singapore tells them, so sorry, so sad, sign dad. They give them the Heisman and tell them bye, which is kind of cool from that perspective. So understanding that, they have the blessings of the Singapore Monetary Authority. Joseph, from where you're sitting, what makes this model revolutionary? Why is Singapore significant when it comes to U.S.-based investors? Is it what I said, or is it more?
Yeah, it's what you said and just a little bit more. I think Singapore, to your point, is positioning themselves to be the gateway to Asia. So what most people don't realize is more than 50%, I think it's over 60%, I got to look at the stats again, of global commodity trade is in Asia. Everybody wants to be in Asia and to trade in Asia. They're on China's doorstep. They're on Asia's doorstep. It's a neutral facilitation, and their port. So Singapore doesn't have really any natural resources that I know about, but their natural resource is really their location. So if you look in the port, you would see just dozens and dozens of tankers, LNG tankers, oil tankers, just going through the ports. It's so busy. And so years and years ago, the government decided, hey, we want to be the go-to place. We want to be inviting. We want to facilitate just a place where people can trade. So, most of your global firms have offices there now. And so what's really, really important is, it's a love-hate relationship, because right now the trading happens in Asia, but the collateral, the US treasuries, the money managers are in the United States, they're in Great Britain, they're in Switzerland, some of it's in Dubai. So it's really the West financing these trades in Asia. A lot of people are upset about that, and it's really, we'll probably talk in a little while. There's so much friction in how that's set up there. But I think it's good for both Asians and Americans and Westerners to kind of have that middle person to go back and forth with and be able to facilitate trade.
I agree with you. And I mean, look, from my audience's perspective, We've talked about the City of London. We've talked about the Bank of International Settlements. We've talked about the international banking cabal, the Fed. That's not really a federal. It's not federal. The Federal Reserve is not federal, and there's no reserves. I think my audience is very up to speed on the crumbling financial infrastructure. But again, you have to have finances to buy commodities, and you have to have some way to move these commodities in a way that doesn't hog tie the seller and the purchaser, A, from tracking the commodity, B, from being able to collect money when you sell the commodity. And the nice thing is with Abaxx, and which we're going to talk about here, is that if I sell a tanker full of gas to you, Joseph, you have the opportunity to get paid immediately. And then because you're in possession of that, you can now resell that tanker to somebody else at a profit before it ever gets to wherever it's going. So the really cool thing is Abaxx does that in real time. So let's talk about this team behind Abaxx, because Josh Crum, I think, is absolutely brilliant. I love watching his videos. I've kind of geeked out on a lot of the stuff he's talking about. Joe Rea, the team. And in full transparency, I'm also an investor because I truly believe that this is the future in terms of facilitating global trade. And if you have clear, simple trade, you can prevent a lot of wars just from where I'm sitting. And I'm not saying Abaxx is set out to do that. I'm just saying that myself. I look at, when you have countries that trade easily and they can settle their debts easily, there's really no friction, right? It makes it all very simple. So Abaxx includes these heavy hitters from Goldman, NYMEX, CME, people who literally built the infrastructure of global trade. From where you're sitting, how does that pedigree shape investor confidence? Because Abaxx is starting to see some pretty significant people want to come in and take a bite of the apple.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. The under the table calls that we know of that are coming in saying, "Hey, I want to work at Abaxx," is incredible. So,
People are calling, trying to get jobs there now?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, very cool.
I can't comment, but very, very high profile people. I think you're going to be seeing some hires in the future. I suspect that you're just going to be blown away with. So, basically, here's kind of how it's structured, and the reason why Abaxx is so confusing is it's just a confusing business. So the parent company is actually in Canada. Josh Crum, who's a Goldman alum, who's been in metals trading all his life in commodity space, is the CEO of the tech company. The tech company owns the Singapore-based company. We own, I think, about 90% of that. We've got a CEO in Singapore, Nancy. She was, I think, head of all commodity sales in, I'm pretty sure she was Goldman Sachs, head of global Asia commodity for Goldman Sachs. Big player. But the key is she's Asian. She has lots and lots of ties in Asia, and she's just bringing just a lot of business through the door. And then you've got Joe Rea. He's chief commercial officer. And like, for instance, Joe, there's two guys, Joe and Dan McElduff, I think is his name. They were really, really involved in building Clearport. Clearport was I think a futures exchange that got bought by, I think, CME or NYMEX. I've got to look. And back in the day, which was a humongo heavy lift. So what's really key here, you've got 5 or 6 major executives at the top that have been working on this for 5 years now. And they're at the pinnacle of their career.
Truly.
A lot of them turned down multi-million-dollar pay packages to come to Abaxx, probably getting paid a couple $100,000. Hopefully they have great stock options. Why are they actually doing that? They see a tremendous opportunity. And so I would tell you, yes, 120 plus years of experience on a lot of these major exchanges that we're now competing against. And a lot of these guys were in the rooms building these exchanges, decades ago.
Very cool. So what differentiates Abaxx from, and you say Abaxx, I say Abaxx, but that's okay.
Abaxx, yeah.
Tomato.
Yeah.
What differentiates this company from legacy systems like Swift, the platform that's moved money around the world for a long time, or even blockchain-based trading platforms that claim to decentralize finance? I mean, the DeFi world in your world is thrown around like, a typical acronym that everybody talks about. But for people that are hearing stuff like this for the first time, they don't understand, what does it mean to be decentralized in finance? What does blockchain mean? How does Abaxx compare to all of these technologies?
Right, right. Okay. So from my perspective, Abaxx has three kind of business verticals. We've got the futures commodity exchange over here. We've got a collateral movement layer kind of in the middle, and then we've got an ID tech over here. So some people say it's two businesses. That's okay. Tomato, tomato, doesn't matter. You know what really differentiates us? We built everything using cryptography, just like a lot of the blockchain companies did, but we built it to the current regulations. No one else in the world did that. I think we're the only ones right now. And it's virtually an impossible task to do. And it took virtually 8 years. They rebuilt a lot of the systems 3 different times. And what does that enable us to do? Well, let's start with the exchange. ICE and CME, they're both $90 billion companies. They've done a phenomenal job. They're virtually printing presses financially, but they haven't updated their systems in forever. And what I'm realizing that I'm hearing on the street is people don't like them. Old systems. Well,
Okay.
old systems. Here's what happens. If you and I are counterparties on a trade, we're chatting back and forth on one of their systems. They capture all that information, just like Mr. Google or Mr. Facebook.
Oh
They
no.
they can trade against it. They can sell that information. They
Oh no.
see everything. People are so tired of it. And so what differentiates us is what Abaxx does is they've got what's called, gosh, where do I even start with this? Basically, their tech stack is built on the cloud. So that's new number one. It's built using cryptography, so it's extremely secure. When a trader goes in to log in, they don't even have your password. And that's where we're moving towards. So if someone wants to hack the data that Abaxx has, Abaxx doesn't have any data on you and me trading on their platform. They don't.
Right.
They just have a little bit of KYC, know your customer regulatory data. Why is that really important? Because, Ann, you and I, if no one's spying on us and we can trade back and forth, yeah, I'm going to go there.
Right.
It just
It's
makes
none of their
sense.
business. It's none of their business.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep, it's none of their business. So how they built it is the way you log in, zero knowledge proof. Don't have time to go into the tech though, but they don't have your password. When we're chatting back and forth, it's encrypted on either side. We secure, like I can house all the chats on my server. I can use, AWS or somewhere. There's also a vault where we can share like bill of ladings. We can sign documents on there. Everything's secure. Everything and what you don't realize is when an LNG ship comes into port, oftentimes the bill of lading shows up after the ship has come and gone. And technically that's part of the title documents. So they cryptographically digitize the title. Doesn't sound like a bit. Are we going to talk about that a little bit later, or do you want to go into that now? But so there's basically these systems that haven't been upgraded for 20 and 30 years.
Right.
And there's these major problems to how commodities are traded. But the key is it's intentional that people aren't changing it. Okay. Because
Right.
what's happening, okay, we support a couple kids in Kenya. We used to use Western Union. Okay. Not
Wow.
Western Union's fault, but we would send it from Nebraska and it would bank hop all the way through. They're going through what's happening is they've got banks in different regulatory environments. They all have to have a cut. Okay.
Of course.
So you, the LNG producer, when you go to the bank and say, hey, I want to borrow money on my LNG, well, your money's probably coming from New York. Okay. But your trade's in Asia. There are middlemen in the middle.
Yep.
Taking a spread.
Yep. All
And your
taking their piece.
your bank's not going to tell you this, but they could have probably lent $400 or $500 million on your LNG. They only gave you 300 because they're taking advantage of you because no one else besides the banking industry is seeing these trades. Okay. So they like the way it is where, I go, hey, I need to do a long-term deal with Ann. I can't go to the exchange right now. And, well, now you can, trade liquid natural gas back and forth. So what Abaxx is doing is they're going to all the commodities that are not physically delivered. What does that mean? Physically delivered just means when Ann and I are trading liquid natural gas, whoever has the contract at the very end, a big ship is going to show up to your front door basically and
Right.
offload your natural gas. Okay.
Right.
Liquid natural gas. Why is that important? It's because at the point of delivery, the futures price, which remember we talked about selling corn ahead of time,
Right.
that price is going to be the actual price of the day,
Right.
this what's called the spot price. But CME, ICE, a lot of these other exchanges, not their fault. They have paper LNG contracts where they just trade it back and forth. They close out, settle in paper, and they say, hey, it's settled for $11.02. We don't know if that was the actual price. The actual price is when an actual physical commodity goes to delivery. What is
Oops.
that called? It's called price discovery. And banks have to have price discovery to lend on it. You know, the banks and, you know, the intermediaries love it when LNG doesn't have any price discovery. So Abaxx now has 3 LNG contracts. 2 of them are trading. They're starting to get more liquidity. So we're starting to see what the actual price of LNG is, which is super, super exciting. And they're doing this to a whole suite of commodities, couple carbon contracts. They've got battery metal contracts. They just added a wind contract. And so they're basically going after all the small contracts that have a lot of risk. And the world, the commodity traders and players and producers and consumers are asking, they're asking for these contracts. And the difference is the Abaxx team went to these producers and said, what do you need to manage your risk? And we built it to what they needed.
Wow. It's so much cleaner than the old paper system because so much of this, as you said, they're skimming off the top from point A to B. They're taking their cut. I mean, anybody can relate to that. That's wired money. You know, you expect that somebody wired you $1,000 and it takes 3 days to get there. And you're like, why did it take 3 days? Well, because it sat in the bank somewhere where they skimmed interest off it until they got it to you. They could have sent it to you instantaneously, but no, they're not doing that. And Abaxx allows you to actually move those payments quickly back and forth so that, like you said, if I wanted to buy a contract or a tanker of LNG from you and I got it at $100 and I have another buyer that I know of that'll buy for $120, 125, I'll flip it. But I can get paid immediately and send it, I can pay you and then get paid immediately, literally in seconds. It's not complicated, but the old system has got to go. So Abaxx.
Yeah. So let's talk about the second business that you just touched on. And this is
Sure.
what really, really excites me. So a futures commodity exchange, most profitable business out of exchanges, and exchanges as a group are some of the most profitable businesses in the world. Why is that? Because the infrastructure is extremely expensive to build. And so if you fail, that's, millions and millions of dollars. Like I think it took Abaxx more than $50 million over 5 years to get the licenses. Where did I get this wrong? I'm investing this based upon a futures commodity exchange. I didn't realize what they were building as well is, these new systems that enable the futures commodity exchange lets you do some very, very valuable things that I didn't realize could happen. So you talked about T0 settlement. What does that actually mean? So that basically means when I borrow, let's say I have $1 billion of LNG, I want to use a loan to sell some or buy some on the futures exchange. I put up collateral. I can basically move my collateral around the same day. Right now, because of these sideload jurisdictions, it takes days to get your collateral through. Everybody, to your point, is getting a cut. So originally I thought, okay, we can just move collateral on the Abaxx network, which is really valuable just in Singapore. That's actually not what's happening. So they've been asked to recreate this all over the world. So what I envision, what I think they're going to be doing is, they'll have trading hubs all over the world. And me as a trader can move collateral from Asia to the United States, to Europe, to the Middle East, to India, same day. Why is that really important? Well, if I'm locking up $1 billion of collateral or borrowed money, you're cutting out all the middleman. Why is that important? It allows the commodity people to be more profitable, therefore bringing down prices for the rest of us. I think this is going to change. to a non-financial nerd, moving collateral at T0 may not sound like a big deal. No one in the world has ever been able to do it. So how are they able to do this? And this is real nerdy thing. And no one in the world has been able to figure this out. So moving collateral is just like writing a check and sending a check. So what did they actually do? And this is where I got it wrong. They actually created the first digital check in the world. They're the first to it. So you can imagine, oh my goodness, they're building this futures commodity exchange. They're telling their investors that they can T+0 move collateral. Well, now we can move anything, anywhere in the world at the speed of light. Okay. So like right now, there's 5 global institutions. Can't mention the names because it's not public. They're all household names. We're doing pilot. Abaxx is doing a pilot with them, and they're tokenizing money market funds and gold funds. Why is this really, really important? Because these major money market funds, there's about $7.5 trillion of US dollars in US money market funds right now.
Wow.
They can tokenize those and move them around really fast. Why is that really, really important? It's really important because the promise of stable coins like blockchain, they told us, hey, I'll send $1,000 to Tether, and Tether is going to give me $1,000 of USDT, and then I can zip it around the world and move around. Well, they told us, and I didn't know this until this year, which tells you a lot because I've done over 1,000 hours of research in this place, and I didn't even know this, that institutions could move money that way. They can't move money in that way. And the reason is it's a loan. So when I send my $1,000 to Tether, they send it back. If Tether were to go bankrupt, my $1,000 would be zero because they got my money.
That's right.
They got my money. And they're saying, hey, we can tell the regulators it's just new tech. They can audit us. Well, I still have to trust them. So that's okay for retail. It's not okay for these institutions, because if they get their $1 billion locked up in some sort of scandal and maybe they get it back eventually, well, they needed that money for a margin call or to operate their business. They don't care because they're out of business. So here's what Abaxx did. What Abaxx did is they attached digital cryptographic title to the actual money. Okay. So everybody's trying to do this, and no one can do it except for us, as far as we know now. So when JP Morgan says,
so wait, when you say digital cryptographic title, I want people to understand, if you're moving a shipment of copper, right? You've now titled it so we know who actually owns it.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, so if the issuer, let's say you tokenize that copper shipment, if the issuer were to go bankrupt, it still has Ann Vandersteel's signature on that she owns it. Okay.
Right.
And it can be read. We know where it's come from, and it can be read instantly. Okay. How are they able to do this? It's because when you tokenize that, just to tie it together, their ID++ technology, basically how the traders were logging in, cryptographically, the computer knows it's you. So when you sign that, it has to be you, because I've heard of horror stories where, someone signed a DocuSign and it was the assistant. It wasn't, the actual decision maker. And we started spending money, and oh no, too bad, so sad. Well, they've made this where you have to have so many credentials to be able to sign these, where, it has to be that person that actually signs it, because only that person has so many credentials. So it's just like when you sign a check, and I send you $100,000 check. Let's say I was drunk, even though I don't drink that much. Wake up the next morning. Wait a second. You have $100,000 check. We're going to go to the court, dispute it. And Ann's going to get one of those special people to, I don't know what they're called, look at the signature and go, oh no, that's your signature, Joseph. Same thing when you walk into the bank and you wire money, your ID, you got to fill out all this paperwork. Where's the money going? Where's the money? Okay. So why is this important? It makes all that null and void. You can just send the dadgum check, and you can send it in one day. This is, unfortunately, I can't mention like stock price or anything. This is the biggest deal in the world. When I found out about this, you better believe that, well, I can't even say that. It's just so valuable, you can't even value it almost, because our whole system, we move, I think it's like $42 trillion of value almost every day around the globe. That's stuck. Like $42
Right.
trillion is in this system where we're using it as collateral, we're moving around. And
That's the global economy you're referencing.
right now we
Yeah.
can move it instantly. It's
Right. Move it instantly.
incredible.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And Abaxx gets paid. The exchange gets paid for items that are moving and being bought and sold across the exchange. So I want to talk about gold because, if anybody's paying attention, gold is on a tear right now. If you own physical gold, you're probably pretty happy depending on how long you've owned it for. If you don't own it, I suggest you I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just saying what I would do. I'd buy more because gold is, it's real money, unlike this green stuff floating around that is, probably toilet paper is worth more than the green stuff that they're printing at the moment. But I digress. So Abaxx has launched gold contracts. It's launched LNG and carbon physically deliverable contracts this last year in 2024. They launched nickel, lithium is coming. But let's talk gold because that is probably one of the sexier ones besides gas, which powers Asia, liquid natural gas. Tell me about gold. Why is gold so exciting to be trading and contracts on Abaxx?
Okay, and this is so key because I don't know this to be certain. Investing is just doing a lot of due diligence and figuring out, okay, what's going on. China Asians, they love gold. They're accumulating at record paces. They do not like the dollar. You know what? Ever since we censored Russia and kicked like 3 of their major banks off the Swiss system back during the Ukraine war, everyone, even our allies, go, oh my gosh, can we trust the United States? We got to dump these treasuries. So people have been using treasuries as collateral in futures commodity exchanges and other exchanges. We think they're going to use gold. Well, Abaxx launched a gold kilobar contract in June of this year. Why is that really important? Because in the West, we deal kind of in these 100-ounce bars, different bars. Well, Asia does these kilobars. It's like 32.27 ounces or something like that. We've got the only contract outside of Asia, only Western contract basically with gold kilobar. When they launched, and we don't even have approval for U.S. Traders to trade us yet, we're growing at basically 100% every 30 days in volume right now, or we have been.
Wow.
It's just taking off. So right place, right time. So
Can you say that one more time? You're going at 100%,
100% in volume, basically. And it goes way
in
up, way down.
every 30 days. I mean, I
every
just
30
want anybody
days.
who's a business owner right now, just stop and take it in what you just said, Joseph. This company, Abaxx, is growing at 100% every 30 days in volumes on their business. Think about that as a business owner, whether you make shoes or you build houses or furniture or whatever it is you're doing. Imagine your business growing by 100% every 30 days. That is staggering.
So why am I excited about this? Why am I excited about this is because we've got a futures contract. They're also coming out with a spot contract. What does that enable you to do? Okay, it allows a Chinese counterpart to deliver their gold to Singapore, physical gold. We're going to tokenize that gold. They can use it as collateral on the exchange, and you can move around, those gold notes instantly. But it's got that cryptographic signature on it. Super important because it links it to that gold bar so that you're not going, okay, is this paper gold? Is this real gold? What is this? Why? It's just the perfect place at the right time. I think that Asia is going to be, hey, let's go to a gold type standard where we use gold as collateral. We're essentially the only ones in the world right now that are positioned to do this. It's absolutely incredible.
And they're not, this is not like naked selling or, ETFs that don't have anything behind it. A lot of people have got in trouble, selling things they don't own.
Yep.
Abaxx, everything it's all tied, digital title. So like you said, you tokenize gold. There's a digital title to you, Joseph Metcalf, as the owner. And when you use it as collateral, because Joseph has $1 million in gold, just for this example here, not saying it's real, but if you have $1 million in gold, now you have collateral to leverage for you to go and buy and trade other things because you actually physically have something. So this is real. I see so many opportunities because, we just saw President Trump pitch the idea of a 50-year mortgage. I gasped when I saw that. I thought, oh my God, How the heck is anybody ever going to pay off a house, and your house is going to cost you so much more? But I also understand, and sadly, in today's interest rates, everything it's necessary, I guess, because you can't even afford the interest rates on a house anymore. I mean, it's just you can't afford to buy a house, so you need to like get smaller mortgage payments. I guess you got to go 50 years to get a smaller mortgage payment to be able to afford just the house payment if you really want to own something. It seems just so incredible how screwed up everything is. But that being said, why is the fact that you've got contracts in nickel, gold, lithium carbonate, the energy contracts, LNG, why is this significant in terms of the energy transition and the global economy? Is
Okay.
energy the next big thing that everybody's really focused on right now? Could energy be the new money system, in other words?
Right. So, China's kind of has us over the barrel as far as processing goes. They
How do
got
you mean processing what?
well, okay. Let's say you get nickel out of the ground. It's got to get processed so we can actually use
Okay,
it.
you're talking about not the liquid natural gas. You're talking about actual physical commodities.
Yeah, physical commodities. I'm sorry. Yeah, so like let's say you have a battery metal, they've got to mine that, they've got to process it. China's got most of the processing in the world. They've been building at record pace for 30 years. It's almost impossible for us to catch up, but we have a humongo, opportunity here to be the person that actually prices those commodities. So, this is just a tremendous opportunity for North America to say, hey, we know that you've got us over a barrel as far as the processing it, but we get to price it. And so having these, having a 21st century futures commodity exchange where we can actually price it in real time, have not have opaque markets, everyone knows what's going on, is tremendously valuable.
Yeah, it's very valuable. So why many people confuse Abaxx, by the way, Joseph, with crypto. They call it a stock play. Can you explain to folks, because I think this is pretty critical, can you explain to folks why Abaxx isn't a stock necessarily or crypto play? See why they should really be looking at this as a commodities infrastructure investment, not just some sort of market speculation. Because there's a
Yeah,
lot of Apple's a stock, Nvidia's a
yeah.
stock, all these stocks, but Abaxx, it trades on the stock market. It trades currently on the over-the-counter exchange in Canada, the OTC. In fact, I just had it. Where did I just pull it up here? Let me
Yeah,
show
it
you
used to
this.
be the Neo Exchange, and they got bought out by the CBOE. And that's part of why if I would thought like by now that the stock would be multiples higher right now, but a lot of investors can't get access to the over-the-counter markets. So
Right.
that's I think that's probably one of the key milestones that'll be for next year. If I were to guess, they would be listing on a big board exchange like Nasdaq, somewhere in the United States.
Sure. Okay, so because it is a company that trades on the exchange and it facilitates commodities over their exchange. Explain why you see this as a commodity infrastructure investment, not market speculation, not a crypto
Right, right,
play, not
right.
a
Great
true stock
question.
play.
Great question. Okay, so it's a little bit confusing because the same cryptography that allows like Bitcoin or allows Ethereum or allows Solana, that same type of cryptography allows Abaxx to build a lot of these systems. You know, I've done thousands of hours of research. 99 out of 100, probably even worse than that, of these cryptos are going to go to zero. Okay. And, there's startups from, there's a lot of cool projects out there. Bitcoin aside, everything else is, a speculative, startup, which is fine. A lot of them are going, some of them will make it, most of them are going to go to zero. But, the difference here is we are a financial infrastructure company that built to current regulations. So it's really, really confusing, but basically crypto, you've got this blockchain that looks like a Walmart list ledger. Everybody can see the trades on it. Okay.
Right.
Complete transparency. Okay. That's great if you want to audit it and everyone wants to be completely transparent. Abaxx doesn't allow that. we're transparent as far as they're transparent as far as pricing, but I can't, if I want to do $1 billion trade with you, and I can't have, my competitor seeing that. So, blockchain enables the tech to work, but we're definitely not, and that's why most people don't even know who they are, because the founder, hey, get this, Josh, the founder, wrote some of the first gold tokenization patents in the world in 2014. He was the first supposedly publicly traded company in the world with 10,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet in the early teens. He knows this stuff extremely well. And, for years, I was like, I couldn't figure out, why does Josh hate crypto, all these crypto companies? And it clicked on me. It dawned on me about a year ago or so. It's not like he doesn't hate the tech. It's that a lot of these founders are going outside of the laws saying, hey, we're going to do whatever we want. And we're going to, tell the regulators we can do X, Y, Z. And that's just not the case. The regulators aren't, Monetary Authority of Singapore. We know they don't like stable coins. It's a single issuer counterparty risk. We talked about that. And it adds a fourth step to the clearinghouse mechanism where it makes it impossible to get to the money. If there's a margin call and let's say, I need the money, the clearinghouse needs the money back within 24 hours, it makes it impossible to get it back within 24 hours. So, I think there's just been a lot of bad information out there on what's really going on and what's real. So the crazy part is we were buying Abaxx and we were buying Bitcoin and doing these cryptographic investments separately, not realizing that Abaxx was really, really deep into cryptography. They were very, very quiet about it for years because a major exchange actually poached one of their people and stole a lot of their IP several years ago. I don't want to get sued, so I won't mention it, but they have a blue logo and their market capitalization is 85 billion. Anyways, so yes, it's not just a pump and dump. If this was a pump and dump company, these are Goldman guys, they're towards the end of their careers, they would have dumped the stock on us years ago. Right. And every time they've raised money a handful of times, probably 3 or 4 times, every time they do it really thoughtfully, try not to water us down. They just did a raise with a strategic investor, one of the largest funds in the world, most powerful families in the world. And I just super, super excited. These type of players, if you would look at who owns Abaxx, BlackRock's got some, Vanguard's got some, Wellington has some, it's public that the Rothschilds has some, large families like Friedlands and Lundins.
Do they have like a majority share or what's their stake in the company?
That's a good question. So if you would go online, the stake of some of these funds is like 500,000 shares, which, is not a ton of money to these, multi-billion-dollar funds. And there's about, I think, like 35 to 40 million shares total. So you're looking at a small percentage. But if you look
like 10%, 8%, like what are we talking?
Yeah, probably around there. But
okay.
we estimate that institutions as a whole, because there's a lot of privately held institution types and family offices, high net worth people that don't have to file, the SEC paperwork, so you don't know their owners. But I've been told internally that it's between 60 and 70% of the stock is actually owned by major players. Some of them want to be known, some of them don't want to be known. That's good and bad. But when you look at the investor list, it's just a who's who investor list. And these players don't typically buy, especially with private money on some occasions, unless they think it's going to be the infrastructure of the future.
And this is where I'm going, because we are going through the global reset of all sorts of things, from the medical side down to the financial side. And in this conversation, we're talking strictly in the financial side. Our dollar system and how we pay for things is blowing up in our faces. As we just established, the dollar's down 97% since it first hit the ground running and printing. So we are really in a bad situation when it comes to the hockey stick of hyperinflation here. And we are also, we're not the darling that we used to be on the global stage. And so we have got to get our affairs in order, and we've got to find a way to maintain privacy. And the reason I have this post up on the screen here, this comes out of Josh Crumb's X account, and he retweeted Naomi Brockwell because this is where he is fundamentally. And I've heard him say this over and over, and he's posts about this, but privacy isn't about hiding. It's about choice. It's about dignity. It's about deciding for ourselves who gets access to our data and under what circumstances. When that choice is taken away, so is a piece of our humanity. So, I mean, this is the guy who's the CEO of this company. He does business with people like Larry Fink of BlackRock and some of these other big players out there that, my audience will say, oh my gosh, these people are the ones that buy everything and they're, own nothing and be happy. Well, from where I'm sitting and what I've seen Josh Crumb do, he is about making sure that everybody gets to benefit from this. And the first thing you got to start with is, how do you keep what you do private? And how do you,
Yeah.
but stay legal, but stay private, because frankly, it's nobody else's business what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I respect that because frankly, our founding fathers were all about that. So,
and you know what? That's a really key point, because your audience may be like, hey, futures commodity exchange, that's great. How does that apply to me directly?
right.
Well, that ID++ tech that underscores the exchange, you can use it for a lot of different things, and you can use it actually for consumer applications. So what it enables you to do is, like, I'm so tired of going to the doctor's office and they want like, I was at a school the other day, they wanted my social security number, they wanted to know where I live, they wanted all this stuff. Why do you even need that? You can actually use ID++ tech, okay? And this is sometime in the future, but it works right now. And we're, a lot of people, like the major companies like the Googles, Microsoft, Amazons of the world, they're working on this as fast as possible. But what you can do with ID++ is, the school wants to verify that I'm my daughter's father. Well, guess what? I can send basically a cryptographic message to their software that says, I am Joseph Metcalf. I didn't have to give them a lick of my information.
Wow.
Okay. So why is this important? Do I want a robot in my house? Yeah, my wife says, absolutely not. I'm going to kill the thing. And I'm like, absolutely. Let's get it to do all sorts of stuff. Am I concerned about that thing taking my data and me training it and giving it personal information? Daggum right I am.
Right.
What you can do with ID++ is, I see it as a layer between, robots, AI, technology stack. It's a protective layer between my data and them. And I choose what information I want to release. Okay. So I don't know if this is, I know this is on their roadmap. I don't know. I know Abaxx has a really good shot of just dominating this space in, the futures commodity market and in finance.
Right.
The difference is, your Facebooks and your Googles, they're working on this, but they're a walled garden. And I don't know if they have your best interest in mind.
Well, I don't think so. And what I like about this technology, from where I'm sitting and what I understand, if I want to transact on the internet and I want to pay for something, and whoever I'm buying from says, well, I want to make sure it's really you, Ann Vandersteel, they can verify this with ID++. But what I'm taking away from ID++ is that information is not getting sold, so that all of a sudden I'm going to start getting advertisements. If I bought a lamp, I'm not going to get 50 other lamp ads that are popping up because they just saw me either, buying something from somebody. They're just not selling the data. It's kept private.
No
I'm
more
allowed
phone
to
numbers,
verify
no
who
more
I am.
emails.
Yeah, no more emails.
Words, none of this spam.
I'm so over the emails.
Yep.
I had to create like 3 like Yahoo accounts to buy things on the internet, so the spam all goes there, because every time I give them my real email, I have to throw it away and start over.
Yeah, so I would tell people, the opportunity here is tremendous. But I'm super excited to support this company, because I really believe in transparent pricing. I believe in real-time collateral without middlemen, and I especially believe in protecting my data.
That's awesome. I love it. All right. We're going to round this out here. I got a couple more questions for you. I want to talk about, physical delivery of this stuff, because big picture, we move a lot of things around the world, right? We've got choke points all over the place, whether it's the Straits of Malacca in Asia or the Panama Canal. There's choke points everywhere. But Abaxx has it on a mission, and the company says its mission is to align paper markets with physical delivery. I think that's a pretty bold challenge. I mean, you're
Mhm.
looking at, decades of infrastructure and opaque price setting, as we talked about at the beginning of this conversation. Uh, I want to understand better, how the current commodities markets are operating to trade. And then what are the implications if Abaxx succeeds? In other words, this old infrastructure, what is going to happen to it if Abaxx
I
takes
don't
over?
know. That's a great question.
I mean, I
So
mean, are there some families that could go out of business? I mean, I'm talking like major financial families. Is
there
any of
might
that
be,
coming?
if they don't pivot, if you look at the last 50 years, the inventor, I think it was Kodak was the inventor of the digital camera. They buried it because
Mm,
it was going to, it was either Kodak or one of the other pictures. They buried it because they didn't want it to cannibalize their business, and they went out of business eventually.
yep.
And so here's what's going on in good times. How we have everything, the global commodity trade, how it's structured, it's okay in good times. But the problem is traders are coming in, and follow me on this one. So if I'm, let's stick with LNG because we've been talking about LNG, but if I've got LNG or even gold, for instance, and I've got leverage on something, and let's say I'm an LNG producer and I'm selling some of my product ahead of time, I need to make sure that me using that futures contract protects me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you use a paper contract instead of something physically deliverable, a lot of times it protects you, but sometimes in your greatest need, it doesn't. So why is this important? Let's use gold for an example. Okay. When Trump tariffed gold, or people thought he was going to tariff gold, um,
Oh
we,
yeah, I remember
we've
that.
got London and we've got New York.
Yeah.
There's physical gold in one location, and then there's futures in another location. Well, what the traders were doing is, okay, if I own gold, I also sometimes buy a futures contract to hedge my risk. Let's say I want to sell some of that gold in the future. So let's say gold's at 3,300 at the time. Okay. So I've got spot gold. I might buy or sell a contract just to protect me a little bit if gold were to go up and down. Well, Trump walks in and he tariffs gold. What did that do? Everyone freaked out because
Mm-hmm.
what did that actually do? It slapped a premium on the actual gold,
Right.
throws these two contracts out of whack. So what people had to do is they had to deliver gold, put it on a ship or a plane, whatever, from London and drop it in the United States. Okay. In those times of really, really stressful times on the market, your futures curve, they call it the futures curve. So your pricing of those contracts doesn't protect you on the physical side. So basically, they should kind of mirror each other a little bit like this. Well, we
Right.
saw this humongous spike. Okay. Why did that happen? It's because you've got these two markets with a big ocean between, and there's just no way of doing this. So they basically said it's a fancy word is called a base trade, or like it's just price dislocation. So if you don't have a really good physically delivered contract in one location, not two, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
shipping to get it across, the time to get it across, all
Sure.
this stuff, it's really, really expensive, and people couldn't cover the cost of that. Okay. So, so in these times of major upheavals or something happens, a supply shock, if you don't have a contract where you can go out in the futures market and say, hey, I want to buy or sell, you're not protected from that. So let's say liquid natural gas goes way down. Like it was trading in the United States, I think under $2 for a long while. It might even be under the cost of production. If those liquid natural gas guys did not have a physically delivered contract where they could sell some of their production ahead of time, that's very tough to do.
Right.
They might lose a lot of money. So what they've been doing is they've been going, say, hey, Joseph and Ann, let's not trade in the market. Let's just do a one-off deal. It works okay, but not great, because we don't know the true price of that natural gas, because you don't know the true price of anything unless you trade it back and forth a lot.
Right.
So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I know it's so confusing. But basically you've got a physical market and you've got a paper market. The paper
Right.
market is just trading back and forth. You can make up whatever price you want. It's not linked to the physical world. Okay. If you can link it to the physical world, you can actually protect yourself using these contracts. And so that's where the humongo opportunity is. And a lot of these, in their defense, like ICE and CME, they have contracts, and they have some physical contracts like West WTI oil, LME for copper, COMEX has a gold, Henry Hub for natural gas. I can't believe they didn't go after liquid natural gas. So there's this humongo opening, when we're talking about energy transition. Some people would say, hey, I don't want carbon in the atmosphere. I'm more along the lines of, we can't burn oil forever because we only have so much of it. But we have a lot of natural gas. It's only about 3% of the global energy consumption right now, but it's growing rapidly. But it's 40% less carbon than burning coal. So it's very, very clean.
Right. Oh, I mean, a lot of buses around the cities are LNG buses. I mean, it's true. They don't smell. They don't put soot out there. So yeah, I'm all for that. And again, we're using what is coming out of the ground anyway. And I mean, I know they call it fossil fuels, but let's be honest, it's a renewable also. I mean, the earth is always making more oil and more gas. It just is what it's doing. It's grinding the rocks down there, and it's not dinosaurs. That's nonsense. Okay. As an early investor, and again, I've been putting this up on the screen. I'll do it again while you're talking because I don't want anybody to construe you as giving financial advice here. But hang on a second. I want to take that off, put this up here. Okay. As an investor, somebody who's really sees the value in this company, what milestones are you watching for this year, 2025, and in 2026 that actually do you think could signal Abaxx's breakout moment? Because you said earlier you thought the stock would be trading higher. So, I mean, we all want stocks to be trading higher, but what is it that you're looking forward to now that's going to be like, that's it, we're off to the moon, we're never looking back? Because I see this as a fundamental change in infrastructure. Things are moving around the world. You got to get oil and gas and gold and everything that's moving around the world from point A to B. And you need to do it at the speed of light if you want to actually, capitalize on the velocity of money. But you also want to track it, and you want to make sure that you still own it and that it title transfers legally from point A to point B, person to person, or commodity, or corporation to corporation, whatever. So what is your idea for Abaxx's breakout moment? Where do you see this?
Well, I would tell you, Ann, that it already happened. And in the sense that, what's Warren Buffett's number one rule? Don't lose money. What's the number two rule? Don't lose money. Number three rule? Don't lose money. Right.
Well, you're up in Nebraska. You'd know. You're outside Omaha.
Here is what's grand about Josh Crumb.
Okay.
He knew that, they think of Nest, the camera system and the thermostat. So Nest came out with the thermostat first. Okay. It was their first product. They need to cash flow it. They need to test it. I see this futures commodity exchange as the Nest thermostat. And Josh built futures commodity exchange because, number one, they needed the regulatory approval to actually use this tokenization tech. Okay. But they also thought like investors and thought, okay, this is a multi-year build. How do we give investors some sort of value with a lot of upside? It's called an asymmetric trade or asymmetric investment. Okay. So when our family looked at this, we were going, okay, as soon as they got their exchange licensing for the clearinghouse and exchange, that's worth $250 million cash, just those two pieces of papers. Okay. We know that just because there's been exchange licensing that's sold before. Okay. So immediately, if you're thinking US dollars, you've got like $7.50 per share covered already of your cost. What really happened for us, how this got de-risked majorly is when the liquid natural gas, there's 3 contracts, 2 of them are liquid and trading right now. It's the North Pacific Asia and then the Gulf of Mexico, and then the gold kilobar contract out of Singapore. Like what you got to realize when you onboard people to this exchange, it takes 6 to 18 months. These are global players. They have multiple risk departments, multiple jurisdictions. One player had 7 subsidiary banks. It's painstakingly long.
Wow.
So yeah, a year ago was I looking at the volumes going, okay, when's this going to start trading? When's this going to start trading? Well, now you've got 3 contracts that are trading every day. You've got exchange licensing. It's been almost completely de-risked. And we normally don't talk about our investments outside of our family ever because, we don't want people to lose money. We're happy to talk about Abaxx. It's because the exchange undergirds everything. So I would tell you this. I think, without giving a stock price target, because I can't. So do your own due diligence. But I believe in the next 5 years, we'll be in a position to handily compete against ICE and CME. Okay.
Well, I'm not going to make you give a price target, but I'm going to point to Cantor Fitzgerald, Howard Lutnick's company. Howard Lutnick, he works with President Trump in the Oval Office. He's giving this an overweight rating and a price target of $81.
Yep.
And right now,
and that's Canadian dollars.
Canadian, and this is where we are today.
So yeah, folks, don't get confused. So it trades in Canada, but there's an over-the-counter market. So if you see ABXX, that's the Canadian market. If you see ABXXF, that's the US market. So yeah, it's the same thing. You just got to do the conversion. So $81 Canadian or $59 US. And I know they're really conservative, and I know they're not valuing. Everybody's valuing this tokenization tech at a big fat 0. Okay.
Meaning that they haven't even factored it in. Not that it's worth 0. It just means they haven't even added they haven't added the value of what the tech does, the ID++ that keeps your data private, but allows you to legally track and title everything. They are keeping that completely at 0 right now without factoring what, and I think that by far is much bigger than the exchange.
Oh, it's factors larger than the exchange. And we think the exchange can be a Goliath mammoth exchange.
Right.
So here's what I would say. I think it could go much, much higher. And that's why we invest in high risk small caps. Okay. But when we talk about high risk, it's got a functioning futures exchange. I would tell you this, I would only put 1/20th of the money in this. If they didn't have the futures commodity exchange, because that undergirds your investment to help you not to lose money if something were to really bad happen. Because I think we're going to make money from here, even if it was just, even if we didn't have the tokenization. But, moving collateral around the world for players when I think we have 2 to 3 years head start on anybody else. I've been very deep into the digital asset market. I haven't heard a single person outside of the Abaxx ecosystem mention full digital title, except they wish they had it. And so when you get,
is this a generational opportunity? I mean, is this one of those things from where you're sitting that could be a generation?
I will be shocked if I'm 80 years old and I'll ever see something like this again. Because here's what's happening, folks. You're replumbing the economy. This is going to happen again, but it might happen in 100 years,
right? Because
you have to wait for tech to catch up. New contracts. And these guys are thinking years ahead of people. They started developing the liquid natural gas contracts 5-6 years ago, and now we need them. This is just not the same thing with the tokenization tech. They rebuilt it. It was so hard. They rebuilt it 3 times. I know they've got one of the best engineers and cryptographers on the planet, that I'm told. And so you can't as an investor, you can't verify that the tokenization tech actually works, but we know that's where most of the money lies. But I sleep really, really good at night because this futures commodity exchange is, it's going to be profitable. Their first earnings call, I think, second earnings call for Q3 is coming up in like a week or so. So I just, coming full circle to that 8% debasement, I would tell you that if our family, myself included, didn't have at least a little bit of money, and this is not financial advice, a little bit of money in plays like this, we would be substantially handicapped. And yes, you're right. It's democratization of investing. And I think tokenization of a lot of investments, getting just everyday people on the road, on the street, access to the investments, because it's not fair. That report that you referenced, That's for Cantor Fitzgerald's 100 million plus clients. That's
Right.
behind a very strict paywall if you would want to read that report. And, you know, power to them, but, you know, this company should be private. They should not be public. I am just so grateful. I think probably Robert Freeland or the Lundin family or one of these founding families, you know, pushed to have it public. And I get this. I think they probably thought it would take like 3 fewer years to build, which is why it's public. Well, it's public. It gives you, everybody else a tremendous opportunity to take advantage of this.
Yeah,
Because
I
if they weren't
agree.
public, we couldn't invest in it.
I agree. I agree. And this is like you said, this is replumbing the infrastructure to
Yeah.
trade what moves around the world, which is commodities. You have to have a commodity. Look, your computer you're sitting in front of right now is made up of a bunch of commodities, and so it is what it is. That coffee cup you had is a commodity. You have to have stuff. Commodities represent stuff, and you got to move it. And now you can move it, and people can get paid quickly. They can track it. They can trade it over and over before it gets from point A to point B. So for people that want to make money moving commodities, they can move it at the speed of light now, as opposed to these paper things. And you can be in total legal standing with all regulatory agencies.
It just unlocks everything. Because if I wanted to, let's say the chair behind me was really valuable, I could tokenize that and use it as collateral somewhere.
Boom.
And so, Ann, when you say on X, let's get physical, it's so important because I believe we're coming into a multi-decade run where really, you know, we just came out of an era where, you know, we're financializing everything in the United States. And yeah, a lot of people made a lot of money doing that, but we're going back to the roots of going, who actually has the power? You know, when we can use 15% of our rockets defending Israel in only a couple of days and we can't reproduce them fast enough, or, you know, China's got the metal we need to reproduce those rockets, you know, we need to get back to let's get physical, you know, the basis. So the crazy part is, you know, when people hear Abaxx Technologies, they go, it can't be true because they're solving so many problems. They're solving futures commodity problems. They're solving physical problems, the collateral problems, and your ID. Well,
your privacy.
You need all of those pieces
to
have a fully functioning 21st century exchange. It's the Nest thermostat. I think they're going to come out with camera systems and all sorts of other stuff? Absolutely, they will be.
Yeah. Abaxx is only going one direction, to the moon. Joe Metcalf, what an honor to have you. What a treasure. I'm glad I tracked you down on X. That was pretty extraordinary. I've just been sort of sniffing around to see who else is out there. The 29ers, you want to just mention quickly what the 29ers is? Because I think that's a pretty elite group of people.
Oh, and I don't want people to think that, but, you know,
I meant it in all the best ways, not snobbing,
okay.
but it's people that have just got grit. They've, you know, they saw something in Abaxx and they stuck with it.
So yeah, and to my point, like when Josh made the decision, hey, it was spring of 2022, you know, the stock went from like, I don't know what it was at the time, like $7 to like $1 or something. Because they made a decision, hey, let's build this from the ground up. Let's not use anybody else's tech. And so there's a group of early retail investors that are extremely smart and has done a lot of due diligence. You know, they kind of have the nickname of the 29ers. It came from Josh saying, hey, there's a group of people that really want to have, by 2029, we want to have really clear market structure. We want to have good pricing. We want to have the ability to curb carbon if we need to, and some other things. And so that's kind of where that came from. But yeah, just a really, really good group of guys and gals.
That's awesome. Really cool. Well, this has been really enlightening. I appreciate you taking the time to break this down into lay speak, because some of this stuff is just not ordinary conversation for people that are typically used to watching what I present.
Yep.
But I think it's important that we get this out there because the plumbing is being replumbed around the world and things are changing. There is a great reset, and you can be a part of the great reset if you get a bite of the apple now. I mean,
and if you want to, I encourage people, if you want to find out more, Investor Cubed is contracted, Neil Simon, to field questions. They're really, really good. I can get you his information. Abaxx has contracted with them. And, you can go to the Abaxx Tech website or the exchange website. It's investors.abaxx.tech. or info@investorcube3.ca. And Neil will be more than happy to answer your questions. That's why they're there. And this is an extremely complex business. And I would tell you 5 years ago, don't touch it. It's way, way, way too high risk. But, we just invested. I started with personal money, then brought on family money as they hit certain milestones, as it became de-risked. And I really believe we're in that gray area where we're essentially almost fully de-risked, but people don't know it yet. And that's just a beautiful place to live in.
It is a beautiful place to live in, and I think this is the future myself. Building smarter markets, right? They say it's a great tag. They've got a great podcast,
Yeah.
Smarter Markets. So
Yeah, let me put a plug here. The tokenization thing, it's really, really tough to understand. If you go to your Apple, iTunes, whatever, they've got a Smarter Markets podcast. You can kind of choose and pick what to listen to, but the last 4 episodes have been about token and ID. Believe me, I'm pretty good at this, and I had to re-listen to a couple of them several times in a row. So if you're interested in this and you're just trying to get caught up to speed, that'd be a great place to start.
Okay, fair enough. Really appreciate your time today, Joseph. Thank you so much. I mean, truly, you're just a lovely, lovely man. Congratulations on your new baby. And I hope to meet you sometime. If you're in Florida, you just give me a shout. We'll grab something to eat. We'll
All
talk
right,
some
sounds
Abaxx.
wonderful. Hey,
Pretty
thank you so
exciting.
much, Ann. Have a wonderful evening.
Yes, you too. Thank you. Wow, that was fascinating. Truly. I hope you guys got a lot out of that, because I think what we're witnessing with Abaxx isn't just the next speculative frontier, it's the next generation of market architecture. For decades, right? We've had trading systems and infrastructure that's relied on opaque intermediaries, delayed settlements, artificial layers of control. Abaxx is demonstrating that technology, when rooted in law, identity, and physical delivery, can restore the integrity to markets and empower a new era of global trade. For the past half a century, nearly all global trading systems, whether for commodities, currencies, or securities, have been governed by centralized intermediaries. Remember those guys that take stuff from you as it gets from you to the person you're sending it to? These middlemen are the custodians, the clearinghouses, the data vendors, the correspondent banks that sit between you and me, the buyers and the sellers. Their function has been to provide trust while they're taking a little bit here, taking a little bit there, to guarantee that the trades settle, contracts clear, and payments arrive. But that trust has come at a cost. 1, opacity. Price discovery often depends on private quotes or self-reported data rather than transparent, auditable trades. For example, as we talked about tonight, much of the liquid natural gas and carbon markets have relied on assessed benchmarks, a price that someone calculates based on what they're told the market's doing, rather than what's actually being traded on an open exchange, not actual deliveries. So Abaxx solves this, right? Delays such as settlements and clearinghouses can take days because ownership, collateral, and counterparty identities have to be verified manually through multiple intermediaries. That locks up trillions in idle capital, and it creates that systemic risk. Abaxx ID++ solves that problem. I mean, this is what I mean. When you talk about moving, commodities from point A to point B and transferring that money and making sure that you know who's got what, who's on first, as they say, Abaxx does it at the speed of light. And this is what we've been battling now with this paper archaic system. So that artificial control, over time, the regulatory and the financial institutions have used their position as trust providers to control access to liquidity and to shape pricing, not always in the interest of true market efficiency. Take, for instance, the SWIFT network, for example, right? Enforces a monetary hierarchy through message control and sanction enforcement. In other words, banks held your money, earned interest while you waited for that wire transfer of funds to clear. In essence, today's financial plumbing, it was built for a slower, paper-based world and then simply digitized, not reinvented. So Abaxx is building what might be called the next generation trust layer, one that doesn't depend on opaque intermediaries, but on verifiable identity, legal enforceability, and physical settlement. Folks, I can't say enough about it. I think this is truly the future of where we're going. When you're talking about, financial title, when you're talking about real-time settlement, collateral mobility, all this factors in to the truth, the transparency, and market integrity. This is what we have been missing, and it matters. Because when you integrate law plus identity plus physical settlement, This is a total philosophical shift as much as a technological one. It totally represents a movement away from a financial system built on permission and opacity towards one built on truth and proof. So when markets operate like this, on verifiable facts, not on assurances of a few people, some custodians, central banks, guess what? The trades become freer, faster, and fairer. And you can do this with your identity protected. So I highly recommend that you guys take a look at this company, get versed in what's going on, because we're living in this world and this reset is happening. Whether we want it to or not, this is happening. And this is your opportunity to get a little bite of the apple. Again, I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just telling you what I find incredibly exciting. This is something I followed for 5 years. So without that, I promise you guys, thank you for the folks that have been in here. Thanks, Agent Farmer. I appreciate that. I highly encourage you to take a look at this company, because this is what I would consider to be the future for commodities exchange, commodity trading, protecting your identity and moving everything at the speed of light, something we haven't really been able to do. And guess who profits? You. We're starting to move the middlemen out, and we're starting to build this system ourselves. And again, I remind you, Singapore is outside the U.S. jurisdiction. So if you're concerned about anything going on in this country and you want to protect yourself, Singapore is not a bad place. Hey, David Don, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That is very kind of you. Agent Farmer, thank you for reposting this. And Joe Metcalf, I see you reposted this as well. Appreciate you guys. All right, I promised you that I was going to give you the trailer to Birthright, Born Free, Live Free. This is a documentary that has been out now for, 4 or 5 months. It's been playing in theaters around the country. I'm one of the folks that is starring in the actual documentary, and we break down very simply the history of our country. And yes, we go there into the income tax stuff, and we talk about exactly what has happened to our country. I think this movie is phenomenal. I think it can be used in the homeschooling platform. So I'm going to reach out to some friends I know, like Sam Sorbo, that are very well versed in homeschooling. And I think the folks at TPUSA would find this very interesting, as well as Hillsdale College, because it truly is rooted in history, rooted in our historical documents, including stuff from the congressional record, just so people know this isn't just some, patriot mythology, because I don't do that here. I bring you the receipts, which is why we bring on people like Joseph Metcalf. Okay, folks, I appreciate your time. Here is the trailer for Birthright, Born Free, Live Free. I'll catch you next time here on Steel News. Good night.
True government is all about one thing and one thing only. What is the will of the people? I don't think they've been running it that way for a very, very, very long time.
And we have a very keen sense of impending doom.
Oh, it's easier to live in the matrix. Ignorance is bliss. I'm like, is it? Wait until they knock on the door and they want to stick something in your arm, or they want to take your cake because you didn't chop something off for them. Is ignorance bliss that? I don't think so.
Government's out of control. It has nothing to do with political party. Government stopped doing things to secure our freedom and started doing things to us to take away our freedom.
They've been talking about how the United States is a democracy. We're a constitutional republic.
The Constitution requires a republican form of government for all states, but does not mention democracy, and neither does the Declaration of Independence or the Bill of Rights.
Democracy is a form of government based upon the principle of majority rule. What would you call a lynch mob? That's majority rule.
The ideal of a constitutional republic is individual liberty.
We told government they could do 19 essential things for the states and no more. And now we've got 6.5 million pages of code, statutes, and ordinances.
We believed we were free, and in reality, the best slaves are the ones who believe they are free.
The law is whatever the powers that be in power happen to say it is today, and it may change tomorrow.
A birthright is anything that's given by God. It's unalienable. That means that no lien can be placed upon it.
It's to protect you from any opposing tyranny, whether it's government or anybody else for that matter.
So how can government have power over people who created it? Well, let's incorporate us so we can force them into the law of the water under contract called code, and now we can regulate and administer everything they do.
There is a higher law that dominates the entire world. It's called the law of the water, maritime admiralty.
So all governments can regulate is the commercial activities.
Between the states, but they've misconstrued it, and they've pushed it all the way down to regulate commerce between you and your neighbor.
Could you go fishing, hunting, cut hair, and did you need a license? No, you didn't need licenses.
The United States Code, I mean, there's, I think, 52 titles, and each book is massive. You don't know what the law really is, right?
They are swimming around in their admiralty law over there, their rules, codes, ordinances, statutes, and they've trumped our Constitution. And we don't even stand up for that.
Now the relationship that the states have with the federal government is that of complete submission.
You no longer have states' rights.
How much deference we give to an agency in deciding what the law is.
The NIH, the CDC, the FDA, all of them are for-profit corporations that are not part of the 19 essential services over here. This corporate construct is what is destroying America.
Well, I found out that the Federal Reserve wasn't federal. If that's not true, what else isn't true?
The 16th Amendment was never properly ratified.
The original 13th Amendment isn't what it is today.
A warranty deed is not a title. The only title to land that there is a land patent.
Every crime is commerce.
You're looking for someone who committed a crime, but you're saying it's worth $1 million. How does it have a monetary value if it's a crime?
This one thing, the law, controls every aspect of our life, and yet they don't teach it to us.
How do we restore our republic? They gave us remedy. It's called the first 8 amendments.
We have a God-ordained civic duty to stand up and defend the Constitution, defend the liberty, the freedom that God gave us. These are our rights, and we're trampling on them.
My greatest hope is that we do the things necessary to reestablish our constitutional republic.
That's the way government's supposed to run. That's the way our founding fathers set it up. Stop the foreign agents. Come out of her, O ye Babylon, and have true, righteous, honest government of we the people.
This election is filled with promises of tax cuts that will go nowhere. But don't let this excess noise blind you to what's really at stake. Your retirement. As economic volatility continues to grow, few are talking about the consequence that could ripple through your retirement savings. Many wealthy investors have started preparing for the shockwave ahead. Have you? If you have $50,000 or more saved for retirement, click the link below or call 1-888-782-9064 and secure your free guide to gold IRAs from Augusta Precious Metals. Again, click the link below or call 1-888-782-9064.